Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm their friend and guest, Alan Singer.
Welcome to another edition of Media Watch, Dr. Singer. Your educator-historian credentials are always welcome on this show. We are again doing this edition the Wednesday before our normal Monday air on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and it's being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Zoom's technology, and as I said, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And we're actually recording this the Wednesday after Raphael Warnock's significant victory in Georgia. Who wants to jump in? Bob, you want to tell us a little bit about what that all means?
Well, I mean, I'm just glad it's over because we've had so many months of these campaign ads, and I'm sure that Georgia folks are sick of it. But yes, last night, and I'm surprised how quickly the voting came in, so that the media outlets were able to call it, a win for incumbent Raphael Warnock, giving the Democrats the 51-49 majority in the Senate, which is significant because it means that Vice President Kamala Harris doesn't have to get involved to break ties as often as she did the last 2 years. So it's a significant win.
Yeah, what it also does is that with that 50-50 vote, Joe Manchin at West Virginia, who's the most conservative member of the Democratic caucus, had essentially a veto power on any legislation. And now he has lost his swing vote because they have a stronger majority.
Yeah, between Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrats did not have control of the Senate. And I've been railing about that ever since the election, the previous election, because everybody was saying the Democrats can't seem to get anything done and they have control of both houses. And I'm saying, what canard are you putting out there? They don't have control of both houses. They had control of the House, but the Senate was just basically, oh, what does Joe Manchin want? What does Kyrsten Sinema want? And what they wanted seemed to be in the Republican playbook, not in the Democratic playbook. So yeah, maybe now they might be able to see if they could resurrect voting rights laws without having to worry about filibusters, but they probably still have an uphill battle for that, even though they might have a one-seat majority in the Senate. They no longer control the House, so it might not be as easy to bring that back up into the House. And all those other things that the Biden agenda tried to put forward that got stymied. So, but speaking of elections and outcomes, Bob, didn't you have a comment about how close that Georgia? I mean, I don't even want to. Maybe we shouldn't editorialize.
Well, I mean, I don't mind editorializing on this because we've seen through the entire campaign that Herschel Walker, former football player, former Texas resident, basically couldn't put together a comment, an idea, a speech. He's the least qualified candidate for a Senate seat I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not saying that. That's not hyperbole from me. That's honest. That's my honest opinion. He's the least qualified person I've seen. And what I can't believe that it was still a 51-49% vote. How 49% of Georgians, people in Georgia, could vote for this unqualified guy, I don't get.
Well, we know that in the November election, almost 90% of white fundamentalist Christian men, 90% of these white guys, they voted for Herschel Walker. And he was a known misogynist. This is incredible, the extent of the ideological divide and the racist divide in the United States.
Alan, those same evangelical Christians voted for the guy who talked about grabbing people's pussy, had suits against him for rape. They didn't blink an eye about voting for him. Why would you be surprised that they would come back and vote for Herschel Walker?
Well, I have to just one brief thing. Barack Obama was absolutely hysterical in this campaign. It was one of the best things he's ever done. Apparently, Herschel Walker was discussing whether vampires or werewolves were tougher. And he decided that it was werewolves. So Obama is giving a speech, and he notes that Herschel Walker in his campaign speech has been talking about this fight between werewolves and vampires. And Obama said, he confessed that he also had been thinking about this debate. The only difference was Obama was 7 years old.
So
That's
yeah, well,
perfect.
that's about the mentality that we saw. No, I will not malign 7-year-olds. Herschel Walker could not even put together a real sentence as well as some 7-year-olds that I know. Okay, I mean, when my grandkids were 7 years old, they could outthink, outspeak, and probably, never mind. Herschel Walker was the most unqualified candidate, as Bob said, that's ever come down the pike. But that's basically par for the course, because guess who endorsed him? The not to be mentioned name on our broadcast. Well, sometimes we have to, but let's talk about the fact that not only did he lose another election on a hand-picked candidate, but on the same day, the New York District Attorney had a successful prosecution of at least one, maybe two of his companies. I think it was 2 companies, right? For fraud. And there were 17 counts. Tell us a little bit about that, Alan.
Well, the Trump organization, and of course, probably Trump had nothing to do with this. What they were doing is to avoid having to pay payroll taxes and to avoid having their top people pay taxes. They were not reporting perks like houses and cars that they were giving to people, which should have counted as income. So what ends up happening is everybody underpaid with their income tax, and the Manhattan DA got him on fraud, 17 counts. Now, the company's going to have to pay fines. But the next question is, since this was now demonstrated to be fraud, which is criminal, will they go for criminal charges?
And they've gone back and forth on that, right, Eric?
Yeah,
First,
from what
Alvin Bragg pulled the person who was doing the investigations, and now apparently he's hired somebody else to possibly move forward.
He hired a known gunslinger, I'm calling him gunslinger, who's very good at criminal prosecutions in these white collar areas. And this is the same DA that had dropped 2 other white collar key legal people who were doing the initial investigation on trying to get Trump on criminal charges. And when he came and he said, I don't see anything there that we can win. And so they resigned when he said he wasn't going to move forward, when Bragg said that. And now Bragg has basically done about face and hired a new gunslinger to take the place of those 2 guys who resigned about a year ago. So it looks like maybe things are not looking so good for the nameless one on our show.
and the key thing here, Eric, is that if you notice the speed that the jury came back. I mean, the jury was back in what, hours? They didn't even have to take a dinner break. It was really quick.
I think
they got cheated out of their dinner.
I think it was just 1 day deliberation. I mean, they were not playing.
Yes, it was quick. Yes.
I read a story about the fact that when somebody in the prosecution case came down with COVID, the judge said, look, jurors, you guys can be, if you want recess, etc. They sent back a note. No, we'll continue. they were not playing. This was a no-nonsense jury saying, we're ready to do this, let's do it. And they did it. So, but, Trump and all these would-be autocrats and all these election deniers, basically that runoff election basically put them in their place. But at the same time that was happening, here was the Twitter guy releasing emails claiming he uncovered First Amendment violations of the company before he bought it. And I don't know, Bob, you know a little bit more about this story because you and Sri Srinivasan were reporting a little bit on that supposed First Amendment.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Elon Musk, since he's taken over Twitter, I mean, it's just been such a shambles the way it's been managed. But yeah, Sri Srinivasan, the former chief digital officer for the city of New York, and a colleague of mine, for full disclosure here, I'm a consultant for his company that does virtual events, and I also write a tech tip for his newsletter. And it's in the newsletter where he goes after Elon Musk and the way that he's handled his things since the acquisition of Twitter. And let me just give you the the headline: Elon Musk and a right wing grift, a match made in heaven. And let me just read you his lead. I'll try to do this quickly. Elon Musk is the Donald Trump of tech bros. He's predictable, ridiculous, and has a following that is arguably just as toxic and now far larger than the former president's. And it's...
No, you're right about that, just as toxic, because the New York Times, I believe about a week ago, had a business article in depth about the immense rise in hate speech on Twitter since Musk took over. They were talking about a threefold increase in hate speech against Black, at least a double increase in hate speech against Jews, anti-LGBTQ stuff. Everything has gone up exponentially since this man has taken over and allowed a bunch of these formerly banned accounts to come back on the platform.
I mean, I have the Times story up. Yeah, it's from a few days ago. Hate speech's rise on Twitter is unprecedented, researchers find. And I'll just quote one little factoid. Before Elon Musk bought Twitter, slurs against Black Americans showed up on the social media service an average of 1,262 times a day. After the billionaire became Twitter's owner, they jumped to 3,876 times a day. That's all you need to know about the kind of people he's let back into Twitter.
It tripled. And similarly for Jews, similarly for LGBTQ people, exponential rise. It is just horrendous. But supposedly in his protection of free speech, he dumps these email troves and then drops another bomb about he thinks that left-leaning people in Twitter tried to sway the Brazil election. Okay.
Right. I have that tweet up. He says, I've seen a lot of concerning tweets about the recent Brazil election. If those tweets are accurate, it's possible that Twitter personnel gave preference to left-wing candidates. And I just want to mention that there's another part of this Sri Srinivasan's newsletter. It says, it's from The Atlantic. It says, Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson don't understand the First Amendment. That's all you need to know about that. Tucker Carlson being the idiot on Fox.
Yes.
So this is a mess.
Yes. And
any possibility that this will bankrupt him? That would be like terrific.
Unfortunately, Alan, I just saw a story while I was trying to research for this program that some of those big advertisers have gone back to Twitter. Just because the platform has so many followers, and so they're going to want to follow the money. They want to make the money. So that little hiccup about all the advertisers fleeing, that was like, you remember back in the day when companies were fleeing the NFL for racist whatever, and then the next week they were back. Similar behavior.
So racists, homophobes, and anti-Semites, they buy sneakers also.
Yes, there you go.
There
you go. So speaking of people who got elected, playing on tropes and things like that, Governor of Virginia, Youngkin, talk to us about that educational angle down there, Alan, because he came out with something last month, I guess, in early November, about revising their school curriculum.
Well, apparently Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin does not want teachers to teach and students to learn about divisive concepts because they may make people uncomfortable. So his committee has issued a new Virginia guiding principles that require the teachers present students only with facts and that they do not ascribe guilt to anyone and that the teachers have to be non-judgmental. Now, Virginia teacher leaders have called this out as out-and-out racism. But this is the thing, Bob and Eric. I've been a teacher for 50 years, and I've yet to figure out how to be non-judgmental about topics like slavery, racism, homophobia, the oppression of women, the exploitation of workers, and genocide. I did an article once I called Multiple Interpretations of Genocide. And what I said was, genocide happened. There's no debate about that. The debate is about why it happened and how it happened. But we have to teach kids that it has happened and it has happened multiple times. Slavery is evil. Slavery is bad. The question is why it happened, how it happened, and who participated. But to silence that is to leave our kids deaf, dumb, and blind about the world.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, the head of the Virginia Education Association, a guy by the name of James Fetterman, he basically said it's just another attack on trying to make history what they want it to be, right? What they want it to be. And what he's saying is there's a removal of content of Martin Luther King Jr. from the K-5 standards, no mention of Juneteenth, removal of content of LGBTQ plus histories. Basically, they have decided that they do not want to teach anything to make these kids aware of the society and the society that they're actually living in. They're trying to put their kids in a bubble. Okay.
Now, Virginia is not the only place clearly where this is happening. Missouri had schools remove 300 books from their library shelves, including Art Spiegelman's graphic novel Mouse. But they had graphic novels based on Orwell's 1984, The Handmaid's Tale removed. They even had a graphic novel for middle-aged kids on the Bible removed. Apparently it had too many begats. They had art history books removed because some of the paintings showed people naked.
Oh yeah, right.
And then they had comic books about Batman and X-Men removed. Now, I'm a big Wolverine fan, so I find the banning X-Men especially upsetting. And if I ever get to speak to Herschel Walker, I'll tell him that Wolverine could definitely kick the ass of both the vampires and the werewolves.
There we go. There we go. We should email that to him. But I remember, Alan, when the Mouse graphic novel was banned, and that's one epic, dark, honest, biting, award-winning graphic novel on surviving the Nazism. I mean, it's just an amazing, graphic novel. But they figured, well, we don't want them to think that much. No, so that's it. It's such a disappointment to see educators try to go back to the 50s.
It showed that Mouse has some scenes where they showed piles of dead naked bodies.
Right. And so that was too much.
That was the Holocaust.
Yes, right.
That's exactly what happened. Exactly. And Mouse, for those who don't know, that's MAUS, in case you want to look it up.
Yeah. We've been down this road about book bannings, about white supremacists, inclined people who do not want to teach the history of this country, warts and all, within the context of educating their students properly, just because they want a white supremacist frame of reference for their community and their young white children. But their schools no longer have just white children. And so the teachers and the head of the education associations in other states are enough teachers have pushed back against this attempted whitewashing of American history. So this is an ongoing battle that we're going to have to continue to highlight and wage war against these reactionary forces. I think that's the right phrase for them, Alan, reactionary forces.
Yes.
But along the educational lines, a big stretch, but just to update our Media Watch folks, we covered the story of a number of people in the state of Mississippi who were being sued by the state of Mississippi because they had misappropriated funds that were earmarked for Mississippi's anti-poverty programs. And among the people who were being sued was one NFL quarterback named Brett Favre. And the story update that I came across that we share because we told people about this story earlier is the state of Mississippi has revised their suit against Mr. Favre. They said, no, we're not suing you for the 1.1 million that you took and didn't give the speeches you contracted to give. You did pay that back, but the 5.5 million that was misappropriated from the anti-poverty program that ended up building a volleyball field and health center at the University of Southern Mississippi where your daughter went, we want that money back. So the suit has been amended. Brett Favre is still on the hook. As far as I could tell, the story that I read, and I thought I'd bring that to our viewers' attention. Along the lines of a quote educational story, I guess a volleyball field, athletic field at a college.
It's an amazing amount of I mean, the next time they put out the Oxford Dictionary, this story should go back next to the word misappropriation. Because the volleyball, it's actually a nice looking building with for their volleyball team, and how welfare funds got appropriated to build it, we'll never know. But I don't want to belabor that since we have other items to go on to.
Clearly, another Brett Favre intercepted pass.
Yes, yes.
Well diverted. Yes,
I like that.
Anyway, there were a couple of other stories that I think we should. How much time do we have left? About
we have about 5 minutes. I don't know if you want to touch that Jerry Jones thing.
Yes.
Since that
I
was
preferred to go to the sanctions
okay
political story because there's going to be more pushback on these elections. But
that's fine.
Arizona, remember the Arizona, all the ninja and all the this is false, this is erroneous. Well, the federal judge came down early in December with a ruling against Kari Lake and I think the guy who was running for either attorney general or a guy by the name of Finchem, and said this lawsuit that you people brought basically was nothing but a frivolous time wasting thing in my courtroom. And he said, you know what? I can't sanction you, but the attorneys that you hired to put this in my courtroom, we're going to sanction them. And so he basically lowered the boom on those folk and said, you are hereby sanctioned. And so he told the Arizona, I guess it was the Republicans who ran the election, who actually asked the judge to sanction it. Is that what they did, Bob?
Let's see. In a blistering 30-page opinion, a federal judge ordered sanctions against the attorneys of Kari Lake and Mark Finchem in their lawsuit against voting machines, hoping to, quote, to deter, quote, similarly baseless suits in the future. And he really laid into them, as you said, Eric.
Similarly baseless suits. And he said, y'all gonna have to pay. And he said to the Arizona people, let us know what your legal fees were and let us know, and let's get that down. So the final ruling isn't laid down until he gets the numbers. Then he's gonna drop that on their heads and say, this is what you're gonna pay. So I'm waiting.
The judge basically said, quote, they never had a factual basis or legal theory that came anywhere close to meeting that burden of proof as to what they wanted to run past them.
What they alleged, yes. Interesting. But yes, like I said, that's might put a damper on such frivolous suits in the past. But
yeah,
speaking of somebody lowering the boom, in the few minutes we got left, do you guys see that medal ceremony for the Capitol Police?
I saw it. Go ahead, Eric.
Of significance was the fact that the family of the police officer who died,
Sicknick, Officer Sicknick.
They passed through that reception line and they thanked the Democrats. They shook Nancy Pelosi's hands. They did everything to thank those folks for their support. They walked right by Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy because they did not want to give those people any deference or because of the way they had treated that event. And then one of the quotes was, after all this thing, they went down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss his ring. They were that upset. One of the family members was quoted as saying, I thought that was significant and worth noting.
I mean, it was nice to see Mitch McConnell standing there with his mouth open as they passed him by. McCarthy was equally befuddled. So that was a good look for the two who deserved to be treated like that. But you were about to say something, Alan?
No, they present themselves as the champions of law and order, and clearly they are not. And I think that was what that family was saying.
Yeah, indeed. I was so happy to see that. I actually gave a fist pump sitting on my couch watching that. So I guess we'll probably be out of time or close to it.
we have exactly 1 minute.
Okay.
Well, let's do the Jerry Jones.
If you can get it in a minute, let's go for it.
Well, I'll try to cue up the picture really quick if I can find it.
It turns out that Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, America's so-called team, in the 1950s, he was part of a white mob that tried to prevent Black kids from integrating Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas schools. Now, Jerry is part of the mob, and you can see him. He's right in the center, in front of the woman. He has never apologized for what he did.
There you go, Bob. That's it. Circle him.
He's never apologized for what he's done. And that was one of the most horrendous actions during the history of racism in American society.
Yeah, and that just confirmed what I always thought and felt about Jerry Jones, because he was one of the leaders in trying to make sure Colin Kaepernick did not get rehired. Okay, folks, that's about it. This has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
I'm Alan Singer, their friend and guest. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thanks, Dr. Singer. And folks, we'll catch you the next time. Stay safe.